One of the most important games of all time is GoldenEye, essentially giving birth to the modern FPS. And while many people will say that this game has aged poorly, I respectfully disagree. Today, we get to experience what it's like to be James Bond, at least for a little while, when I complete GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode of The Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. And today, we're taking on the granddaddy of all console first-person shooters, GoldenEye 007 for the N64. Shakers only. Look, I don't really know how to shake things. We don't have any martini glasses. And this is just water. Let's begin. It's not very good water.
Here comes a new challenger! Yes! Danger! Perfect!
The Nintendo 64 is easily one of my favorite consoles of all time. And while Nintendo themselves put out most of the classic games on their system, there was one other company that consistently hit it out of the park: Rare. Many of the games they've created have become all-time classics. And while my personal favorite is Banjo-Kazooie, their most influential game has got to be GoldenEye. It introduced a genre to millions of people, made multiplayer an important part of the gaming experience, and proved that licensed games don't have to always be terrible. So while there had been other great FPSs before it, GoldenEye was the first one to be widely accepted by everyone because it was on a home console and not PC. Everyone was playing it because it was easy to get a group of kids around it to play together. If you were at a sleepover in 1998, the host better have a Nintendo 64 and 4 controllers because you guys are going to stay up all night playing this game, and Oddjob is banned. GoldenEye was not just accessible, it was revolutionary. The big FPSs at the time were Doom and Quake, games all about moving quickly and shooting as many bullets as possible to win. GoldenEye basically took the opposite approach. If you shot someone, that character would react based on where you shot them. Shoot them in the arm, they'll grab it, and they can't use it anymore. Shoot them in the crotch, they'll grab their crotch in pain. And all of this came from a licensed video game. Usually, these were just cheap cash grabs, so parents would buy a game with a familiar face to give it to their kids. They didn't have to be good, especially when they came out 2 years after the movie they're based on. David Doak and the team at Rare didn't want to do that. Instead, those guys didn't just make one of the most popular games on the N64, they made one of the most important games of all time. And what's the plot to this immensely important game? Well, it's the same as the movie. You're James Bond, one of the coolest people of all time, the Pierce Brosnan version. Women want to be with you and men want to be you. You're on a mission with your fellow 00 agent, Alec Trevelyan. Things don't go according to plan, and he dies. Almost a decade later, you go on a new mission to stop the leader of the Janus crime syndicate, only to learn that it is your dead friend. It's now up to you to stop Trevelyan and save the world. You do this by exploring the levels, killing any enemies that get in your way, and completing all of the objectives in each mission. The only things by your side are your guns and your wit. Granted, James Bond doesn't talk in this game, so any clever banter will have to come straight from you. The only thing I'm worried about in all of this is the fact that this game hasn't aged well, especially with its controls. Can a first-person shooter from the 90s with only one joystick hold up against the FPS juggernauts of today? In my opinion, yes. So the biggest complaint I have heard about GoldenEye is that the game did not age well. First-person shooters have come so far with so many innovations, there's no way this arcade game can hold up. And although there are some elements that aren't as good as I remember, there are other parts that are even better than I remember. Take, for example, the presentation. Yeah, the game to today's standards looks ugly as hell. The textures are muddy looking, and every single character model looks like you made a Play-Doh man and put a photo of an actual person's face around said Play-Doh man. But for me, they go all around the ugliness circle until they're charming again. When I see these, I know I'm either looking at GoldenEye or at a preschooler's voodoo doll. While I disagree, I understand the complaints for the graphics. What I don't understand is, where is the praise for the sound design? It's some of the best on the N64. Every gunfight is filled with the sound of bullets ricocheting off the walls and the screams of the various unnamed goons unfortunate enough to get in your way. It even feels satisfying just to reload your weapon. And the score, oh my god, the score. Grant Kirkhope and Graham Norgate really outdid themselves because the music in the game GoldenEye is better than the music in the movie GoldenEye. Each track is perfectly ambient for the level they represent. Cervinaya's surface feels mysterious and exciting with its combination of high synth and low bass drums. As soon as you hear the music for Frigate, you know you're in for a fight. Even the pause screen, which is your spy watch, is great. It sounds sexy. This may be the sexiest watch in all of video games. Hold on one sec. Note to self, make top 10 list of sexiest watches in video games. Probably SEO with Big Ben's 161st birthday. Got it. With the presentation out of the way, it's time to dive into the biggest complaint of GoldenEye. Like James Bond awkwardly diving off the dam. The controls for GoldenEye are pretty terrible when compared to modern FPSs. And the main reason why is obvious when you look at the modern controller next to an N64 controller. That's right, you only got the one working analog stick. If you've played any first-person game since the introduction of the PlayStation DualShock controller, you know that the left analog stick is to move while the right analog stick moves the camera so you can see what's around you. In comparison, GoldenEye's controls can seem completely foreign. The analog stick moves you forwards and backwards, but if you move it to the left or right, you will turn in that direction. If you want to look up or down, you have to use the corresponding C button, while the left and right C buttons make you strafe. If you want to stop and aim accurately at someone's head, you need to hit the left or right bumper to get a precise shot. Now, this control scheme is a much slower and more methodical way to take out your enemies compared to modern shooters. But it is perfect for a slower, methodical game like GoldenEye. You're not Master Chief or Doom Guy performing superhuman feats and killing aliens that spew blood everywhere. You're 007. You're a spy that needs to infiltrate an enemy's base, complete your mission, and get the hell out. Taking that extra second to hit that right shot so you can sneak in is more important than just killing everyone in a spray of bullets and getting caught. The one thing everyone can agree on is the multiplayer is awesome. Playing split screen with all of your friends is an incredible experience. This set the standard for every FPS multiplayer game going forward, including customized rule sets. It was an absolute pleasure to get to slap the shit out of Ted without breaking any laws. I have to say that in my career, I am super lucky for all of the awesome opportunities I've ever been given, and at a convention one year, I actually got to meet David Doak. For those of you who are unfamiliar with David Doak, he is one of the key guys behind GoldenEye. He, with the rest of the team, put his blood, sweat, and tears into this game. And truth be told, he is one of the nicest guys on planet Earth. Since I've met David, he and I have been very close friends. So I knew that when the time came for me to cover GoldenEye, that I wanted to ask him some questions. And one of the key questions I asked was, why do you think GoldenEye still holds up to this day?
So I think it still holds up today because I think that there are two kind of big pillars to it. I think in the single player story, we did a lot of innovative stuff in terms of pushing first person shooter forward, and the innovation was largely outside of the shooting. The innovation was in the kind of objectives and the believable world and the diversity of stuff you could do, and it borrowed the story from the film and built on that story arc, but it kind of moved away, I think, dramatically from the kind of player centric shooters like Doom. So I mean player centric in that if you play Doom, it's just to me it's a whole setup which just collapses on the player. All of those guys that you fight against in things like Doom, they're all just waiting for you to come into the environment, and then they lay in on you. Whereas in GoldenEye, I think you feel like you're in an environment where you've got your own agenda. You've subscribed to an agenda, which is the mission stuff, but the world is believable outside of that. And then the other reason, and I don't think we'd be talking about it if it hadn't been a killer feature, is the multiplayer. When that game came out, the options for people playing local split screen or co-op multiplayer, just multiplayer generally, if you wanted to do that in a first-person game, everyone had to bring a PC and a monitor and all your LAN equipment and set it all up. But the N64, it was plug and play. You know, console, cartridge, 4 controllers, 1 TV, bang, you're in there. So I think it wouldn't have had the legs that it has had if it wasn't for the multiplayer.
GoldenEye is not perfect by any means, but I feel like it's gotten a bad rep nowadays because people are comparing the graphics and the controls to the modern shooters we all know and love, right? But you shouldn't compare this game to modern shooters. This isn't Halo. This isn't Call of Duty. This is GoldenEye, and you get to be James Bond. When Rare was developing GoldenEye, they had one goal in mind: make the player feel like James Bond. And they succeeded for the most part. I genuinely felt like James Bond until I had to play the campaign multiple times through. Let me explain. GoldenEye set itself apart from other shooters at the time by being objective-based. Most other FPSs were all about killing every enemy by running around and spraying bullets everywhere. GoldenEye took a different approach. Each level of the campaign features different objectives that must be met in order to beat the level, whether this be blowing something up with timed bombs or rescuing and defending a hostage. And how to complete the objectives wasn't always obvious. I had to go into each level and figure out how to get the objective done and how to handle the situation. Plus, there are some stealth elements involved. There are a ton of moments where you can get by completely undetected with just a silenced PP7 and a sniper rifle. It was cool. I was a spy using the tools given to me to solve problems. And that's what James Bond is all about. Well, that and seducing women. And this game doesn't handle that part well. Literally, the ending credits are just James and Natalia making out for like 2 minutes while the credits roll. It's kind of weird. But it's after the credits roll that the real trouble starts. You see, only 2 of the difficulties are available when you first start the campaign: Agent and Secret Agent. To unlock the next difficulty, 00 Agent, you have to beat the campaign on Secret Agent. So by the time I unlocked 00 Agent difficulty, I had already experienced everything the game had to offer. The discovery was gone. All of the best Bond moments in the films are when he has to solve a problem in the moment based on his instinct and what was around him, like being trapped with the laser in Goldfinger, or when he disguises himself as a mannequin of himself in The Man with the Golden Gun. When you already have all the answers, you just go through the motions. The worst part is that it didn't even feel that much harder. Take, for example, the final level. On Secret Agent difficulty, it took me about 3 hours to finally kill Trevelyan without dying myself afterwards. And then when I played it on 00 Agent difficulty, it only took me 2 tries. It was completely unsatisfying, and I was so ready to be done with this game. Until I unlocked the 2 bonus levels. Both Egyptian and Aztec are fun homages referencing other Bond films, putting you up against Baron Samedi and Jaws. They're a lot of fun and started to re-energize me to feel like James Bond once again, because I was literally dropping into new adventures with classic characters. Then I had to play all the levels again for a 3rd time. Every level has a time trial element in order to unlock cheats for the campaign and multiplayer modes. If you beat a level on a specific difficulty in a specific amount of time, you get the cheat. Although the cheats are cool, I particularly like the paintball and DK modes. I basically did all the levels as fast as possible when I had to replay the campaign on 00 Agent, so I was literally doing the exact same thing I had already done. Not only is there nothing new to discover here, but having to move quickly really works against the controls. They're built around taking your time and eliminating targets with precision, not sprinting through and killing everyone. I've been over that already. And what's really frustrating is that you don't have to do all the time trials to unlock the cheats. You can just unlock the cheat codes. There is no reason to do the time trials other than I had to. There's not even a cool check mark or something that acknowledges that I completed them. I loved playing through GoldenEye the first time. The sense of discovery and stealth made me actually feel like James Bond. And then I had to do it again and again, and it got really, really old real quick. If I just got to start at the 00 Agent difficulty, I'm sure I'd be singing a different tune here. But 3 playthroughs for this game is just too many. The game started off feeling like Sean Connery in Goldfinger. Cool, technical, and deadly. At the end, it felt like Roger Moore and Octopussy, a clown that's too old for this. So you unlock cheats by beating the time trials, but you can just get those by entering codes. Is there any other reason for completing this game? Actually, yes. Once you beat every mission on 00 Agent, you unlock another special difficulty called 007. It's a type of sandbox mode where you can edit the stats of enemies. This includes health, damage, accuracy, and reaction time. You can set up an entire level to feel the easiest or hardest it's ever been. As the completionist, I felt I had to at least try a level at the hardest difficulty and see what happened. I unloaded an entire clip of bullets into the first enemy's chest, and then he just killed me. Now, this is so cool and adds tons of replayability to the single-player campaign. However, I still feel the best experience is just play through this thing the first time. On my first playthrough of GoldenEye for this video, I had a ton of fun. I was experiencing the levels for the first time, sneaking around, and learning what I had to do as I played. It was really cool, and I genuinely felt like a 007 agent trying to choose his best route. When I had to play it once again on a harder difficulty, all the discovery was gone. It felt like I was just speed running my way through the game and not experiencing it as I should. And I literally had to speed run my way through the levels again. This further emphasized how poorly the controls feel today. I could ignore that when I was taking my time, but I couldn't ignore it when instinct kicked in and I only had one joystick. Play the game for the first time through and have fun slapping your friends when you can get together again. When I completed GoldenEye 007 on the N64, there were 75 deaths, which is BS because it's a license to kill, not a license to die. 4 difficulties played. If you want the best experience, play on Secret Agent and figure out the levels as you go. 20 levels beaten, all of which I sped through to unlock cheats in multiplayer, or I just used cheat codes. You'll never know. 32 weapons used. My favorites being the rocket launcher, Moonraker laser, and of course, the golden gun. 22 hours of total playtime, and 26 times Sean Bean had to die, including the 3 times I had to kill him in this game. Looks like my bullets bored a hole in Boromir.
GoldenEye changed everything. It established the FPS genre on consoles and paved the way for so many classic games, as well as what people would expect from a multiplayer experience. The game succeeds making you feel like James Bond, but only for about a third of that completion process. After that, the arcade controls start to kind of get in the way and sometimes ruin the really cool atmospheres built around the game. GoldenEye is still a ton of fun and deserves the praise that it gets, but you don't need to revisit the single-player campaign to experience it. The best way to play GoldenEye 007 is with 4 friends on a console. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of finish it.
Finish it!